This is an ABC News special report. Now reporting, David Muir.
Good evening, and we're coming on the air at this hour with breaking news after the U.S. warned all day of a full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine, that it was imminent. Vladimir Putin has just addressed the Russian people moments ago, announcing what Putin called the start of a military special operation.
Just like witches at black masses, evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction. In the fields of bodies burning, as the war machine keeps turning, death and hatred to mankind, poisoning their brainwashed minds.
Hi, I'm Chaplain Sanders, and I'm going to be your guide to the rest of this LPD. What we're going to do is we're going to review the lessons learned from the war in Ukraine based on the Royal United Services Institute paper. This is going to be the format. First, I'll introduce the guest that's about to come on. Then you'll see a screen that pops up that kind of frames the question that the guest is going to attempt to answer. Now, these guests, what we've done is we've recorded podcast episodes with them, and we've sneakily put these questions into those interviews. On the bottom of the screen, you'll see a QR code. Feel free to take your camera or your phone and scan that QR code to get the full episode where we talk about these in particular subjects much more in depth. One of the key takeaways from the Russian side of the war in Ukraine is that they did military deception really, really well. They did it so well, in fact, they deceived their own guys. We asked the PSYOPs Component Director, Lieutenant Colonel Adam DeGadio, about how to not replicate those failures.
I mean, so the short answer is, one, information sharing, and, everything from just the understanding of the plan and understanding the battle, all the way to the level of talking about developing COPS and how do commanders at echelon understand the battlefield and what's being done. That's hard. And even as technically savvy as we currently are, in the last week, we're having meetings about how much of a challenge that is, especially when you're trying to visualize all of the things happening in the information environment in a battle space or in a commander's purview, because you very quickly get to the point where there's so much that we can't really filter it. And again, back to that relevancy, how do you understand it? So, first and foremost, it just comes down to the deliberate processes we have to plan, to share plan, to collaborate. And I think from a targeting perspective is synchronizing the targeting cycle, right? Whether we're talking about Army targeting or we're talking about the joint targeting cycle at a higher echelon, the ability to ensure that all of your activities are in some way reflected in the targeting process. And if you're a unit commander that has a defined battle space, that you are absolutely remaining aware and informed of exactly what's going on. I mean, those things that were applicable 40, 50 years ago are still absolutely still applicable.
One of the strengths of the Ukrainian army is that they could operate decentralized. This meant that their logistics hubs weren't all in one spot. So we asked Lieutenant Colonel Julian Toscano, a Marine, who actually runs the Cognitive Marine Instagram page, to weigh in on this. Now, I apologize for the fact that you don't have a video to follow along with. You'll just have his emblem, but he's trying to manage keep his face out of the public eye as much as he possibly can.
I pride myself as a Marine, but not only in my institution, we pride ourselves on adapting ourselves to the environment that we are in, and doing all that we can to not just meld the environment around us, but make that environment work for you, vice shaping that environment to suit your comfort based decisions. And these things can get very dangerous very quickly, and that's where kind of foraging really comes into play. Is that what can you do as an organization to locally source all the logistics requirements that you need? I can tell you that there's probably a lot of logistics that may be comfort items that you're going to go without, but there's probably a whole range of other things that you're going to gain by locally procuring all those resources you need. As an example, you may not get 21 flavors of ice cream as you would at some air base in Iraq or some large position in Kuwait or something like that. But what you will do is at very low cost probably get a very good meal with everything you need. And not only that, but also build a local a connection with a local supplier who may have your back and want no harm to ever come to you because it's in their best interest. And you're gaining the hearts and minds right outside the gate.
It's impossible to talk about the Ukrainian war without talking about UAS or counter UAS. We asked the International Sniper Competition winners, Sergeant First Class Vargas, Staff Sergeant Ben Cotton, and Staff Sergeant Allen, all National Guard members, 2 from Arkansas and 1 from New Mexico, to how did they manage to counter the drones that were put at them in the International Sniper Competition.
So they used thermal and UAVs. And when I say UAVs, I mean like quadcopters that can go and fly below the canopy of the trees and 360 the whole position. So you basically, instead of being able to camouflage yourself, the area in between point A and point B, which is yourself, now you have to stay hidden completely around you. And it was extremely difficult.
How do you slip through some woods without actually being caught by a quadcopter? Because I imagine that'd be pretty difficult.
You don't.
You don't.
It was extremely difficult. I think the quadcopter busted probably over half the teams out there. I mean, the thermals really didn't do much. It was that drone.
So thermal's pretty. We've been training on how to defeat thermals, but having a quadcopter that can literally hover 10 feet above your head and you can't even hear it. That's a very difficult thing to try to stunt.
One of the things that the Ukrainians got right and continue to get right is their ability to adapt on the battlefield no matter what seems to happen. Who better to talk to us about the adaptability of fighting forces than General Stanley McChrystal?
Story of Admiral Nelson. And, my perception of particularly 19th century naval battles, you got these big wooden ships where they were flogging the crew members every few days, and everything was very, very constrained by the leader. In fact, they fought in lines of battle. These big men of war would go in single file because the broadsides all went out the side, so they had set tactics. And then as I learned more about Horatio Nelson, I learned that what he did was he viewed his captains as entrepreneurs of battle. And what he thought was, if I make my individual captains and the crews that they lead effective enough, then when we get into the chaos of combat, which you all know well, because it never goes like you want it to, they thought that they would be positioned to benefit from that chaos. And so in his biggest battle, Trafalgar in 1805, the whole battle plan is designed to create that chaos. So in that chaos, the advantages of his fleet would come out. And in fact, he gave instructions to his captains a couple of days before the battle. And he said, no captain can do very wrong if they pull their ship alongside that of the enemy. And so what he's basically saying is, in the chaos, use your best judgment and act. And of course, his success in that particular fight was complete. So, you know, when I transferred that to my experience on the battlefield in Iraq, we had doctrine, we had processes, and they can become constraining. They can corset you in what you do. And in reality, what you got to do is whatever works. And in fact, when I was a young officer, somebody taught me, if it's stupid and it works, it isn't stupid.